So this entire series of Python is dedicated to my teacher Rahul Tiwari sir. And in this series, we are also, alongside with learning data structure and algorithms, we'll try to build intuition around Python. And I hopefully all also, gonna create the very same way of teaching with C++ and maybe C sharp and Golang. I haven't given a much thought about it, but those languages I quite like. I just like them, and they're like quite easy to use and like they're quite powerful. Besides, when it comes to parallelization, Golang is quite good, and when it's come to C sharp, which is kind of felt like much better than Java language. So we'll see that we're gonna approach those languages or not. But more than the language part is the building the ability to solve a problem and approach it logically. And my teacher has created these, laid out these foundations in me when I was in school. So the approach that he took over that time is with the help of a pen and paper. So this is my recommendation, even if you starting new, or even if you already have done some of the coding or programming part, or you have been through this data structure and algorithm part. I still highly recommend using pen and paper, no digital devices, nothing. So just first try to write on your own with creating your own way, trying to explain it by yourself on a notebook, and then try to approach it in a machine. So let's try to build an intuition of Python in the early, with an example which I have created. And in this example, let's try to imagine yourself in a school. So you're in your school and you are just, bunking your class. And meanwhile, while you're, just bunking and roaming here and there in the corridors, what happened is that your sports teacher just caught you. And now you're in a little bit of trouble. You thought like, hey, I think I got caught. Now what I'm gonna do? What sort of kind of lie I'm gonna speak to him, gonna tell him. So here what happened was a little bit of surprise for you, that he asked you to grab few names from particular section. Maybe it's could be ninth B, in the ninth grade and the B section of it. And he asked you to why that they want to create a new football team for this school with a new really good players. The new players gonna bring this adrenaline into the team. So they want to create a new team, and for that he wants some name. So, or maybe she. Okay, so you just went over there into the classroom, and you just went over there and just ask everyone like, hey, I am here on the behalf of my sports teacher, and he wants few names regarding to the new football team which we are creating in our school for our school team. So everyone so the first possibility here is that everyone might strip off a piece of paper from behind of their notebooks and just write their name and just given back to you. And you just took those multiple lists. It kind of, they could be like 10 to 20 lists maybe. Is it still lagging? No. So that could be a possibility, and it's the first intuition that we started gonna look at the problem which might arise with this sort of approach. So you went back to the teacher. So past future, I think I went. Yeah, so went. I'm really terrible with grammar. So you just went back to the teacher and you just started offering him like, hey, so here are the name lists. Here's the list of names which you asked from that particular class and the section. And he be like, are you crazy? Like, how I'm gonna take care of these? I might get lost. I mean, these might get lost. This doesn't even have any sort of class mention over there, not even the section. Forget the section. But this is such a gonna be a big mess. And this is our first part of the problem. When you started to storing data in the machine, it's got separated, it got stored in a separated way. But how would you make sure that it just remain in a one place? So you just on the way start going back again to this class so that you can write down these names. Maybe the possibility here is that you could write these names in a one big piece of paper and might solve this problem. But here let's try to build the intuition slowly, and let's try to take this approach which I'm want to explain to you. So you just on the way of going back to this class again, you might just fell off, and maybe someone got you know hit you while walking, and you just might lost few of the slips. And now you'll be like how I'm gonna take care of it. So I think you got a little bit of idea around the problem which I'm trying to explain is that handling this data in the way that it's being separated, it's not being in a one, in one file or at one place. So it's gonna start a little bit of a problem. And in the old days when we used to had, these older machines, when we used to had, punch cards, these big machines like of the room size, the programmers used to use some punch cards, and the way that it worked is that you have to punch one card, then another card and another card, and what these cards used to have, the programs, the data information which is need to be fed, the logical part, that's the program, it's gonna do some computation on these data, on these datas. So that's how we used to do it program. But over a period of time, the improvement in the computer machines had led to a, an efficient way to solve this problem, because now data is also increasing on a day by day. It's the way, you can think of the time of the 70s or 80s, when the data started really growing slowly and slowly, and the machines are getting into the households, and we are starting having some sort of a personal computers, the corporates started using computers, and they want to optimize it. So for this optimization, we came to a place that we starting facing problems, handling data, how we can retrieve data fast, and how we can do multiple operations on them, so that we can save a lot of other time and can do other tasks. So this is the very first problem. So you went over to the class and you just said like, hey, you know what, like just write your names again, and on a just a big piece of paper, and just give it back to me, because he is saying that you should mention all your name in just at one place. So one guy at the very front bench, usually this is what happens in my school days, and one guy just strip off a big piece of paper, and he just wrote his name, and then the other people, other students started writing their names also. And you just hopefully just took this sheet as soon as, because you will also want to enjoy your bunk time, so you just went over there quite quickly, and you just hand over this this list. And he be like, as soon as he started reading, he said like, there are two or three names which are like same. Now there's a problem again. So you don't know how you can rectify and how you can identify who is who, because now there is no mention of the particular identifier which makes them unique, is the roll number in a class. A roll call, a serial number is been assigned to each and every student, so that it makes it easier to do segregation, to work with their data in the school database management system or any sort of thing. And even in the examination, like which Shubham, so usually Shubham is a very common name in India, it's like quite common, then afterwards there is a name called Rahul. So so there could be multiple Shubhams. I think there was one section in my college used to have four Shubham in just one section. So you have to also make sure that which Shubham is gonna sit at which place in the examination, so you need serial numbers. So now for this time, like he said, hey, you know what, like you're being so crazy right now, just go and write it down again, ask them, and with rule numbers, because I could not identify who is who. And the students are also gonna be started creating chaos, because that's what students do in school. So now for example, right now you could not take the roll calls here, you could not write these, because you just don't know. But you being able to come to a point where you starting storing your data in a one place. And let's try to look at into to the machine, that what it is in, like how we can think about this in Python and the in programmatic way. So let's try to hop into the display, and let's try to see. So here, let me say, so here what we're gonna do is, we are not gonna install any sort of software in our machines, because a lot of people I know could not have such a good machines which could run. But I mean, even a Python idle could, Python interpreter could, I'm gonna explain what interpreter is. So the program where Python code runs, a lot of people just could not afford. So we're going to use browsers, and with the thing nowadays is that it's free, majority of the thing is free, so you can work quite easily and effectively without even paying any penny. I mean, you don't have to pay anything. I don't like paying, so why would you pay? So now here what I've done is, I went to replit.com, and let me show you. You go to google.com, maybe your any search engine, I just really like Google. So replit is here. as as soon as you search Replit, all you have to go here, And now once you after doing your sign up or sign in thing, it's quite easy. You don't have to much worry about it. It's just simple process. So after reaching here, what you have to do is to it's kind of open up something like this. This is gonna be the UI. The first thing I did is change the layout, because I think you're gonna see the layout in a white white background, and which kind of hurts eyes. So I just installed this. All you have to do is to click this and it will start installing. And even if you want to change any theme, you can change it. I've selected all. You can select from here, so you can do there in the dark here, and all the theme you like, whichever color you like. Color is gonna find like ash is good. You can even use the apple dark. Okay? Apply. Try to install it so that so now it's applied. Just so quick. So now went back to home, and here at home, as you can see, so here as you can see that what you have to do is to you can create a REPL right here. Okay, maybe you can create from here. All I did is already created one for the Hindi audience, so it was there. All you have to do is to create REPL and then use the template. So we're learning right now Python, and name something here. So I'm gonna name it Python the way I want it. It's gonna be English default. You can name anything you want. I want you to name by yourself. Learn like this way. Okay, so just create REPL. It's gonna create the repository for you, and repository is nothing but it's a fancy word for for the word folder. So it's just a folder. Got it? Now here are a few things here. The first thing is the main file. Okay, so this is the place where our programs look for try to exist. Why? See, let me just pull down so that you see me. Okay, so there is a thing. So there is a thing in computers, and which is called a function. So the very first thing which you're gonna encounter right now here is a function. Why function? Because see, a function, I already have explained this in a video. You can go and check it out. But function in short is a thing which maps bunch of inputs to an output. The output is gonna be one. So for example, right now I'm feeding my input to here with the camera and input. Yes. Yeah. So I'm feeding my input from this camera. So this machine is taking this and it's gonna creating a function. Then this function, it's a big function right now. You can think of this as 2 points. Right now, input is from my side and output at your side. You're gonna have just one output, and it's gonna do multiple things in between those functions, because there's like a lot of things going on. Okay, so this is what a function is. And the very first thing which you're going to see right here is a function. And a function, see, a computer could have a multiple function, and it has. For example, this keyboard right here is a function. It maps, particular key to a particular letter, machine, and this is a function, right? So a function could be a composed of multiple functions. But in this multiple function, how would you know which function exists first? Okay, it's all about that. So you can go with the example of Avengers, like there is multiverse, but how do you identify yours one? How Doctor Strange is gonna find like this is his universe. Okay, so you can think of this way that there are multiple universe, multiple functions are there, and you have to identify which function is mine, or which is the first which I should start with. So there is a thing called main, and what main is, what's to. So as I told you, there could be multiple you know functions. Function could be anything. For example, this is your machine right now. So one function is for display. So okay, function could be the keyboard. One function could be the mouse, and one could be the processor. Okay, so these are multiple functions, but which one you should go start with? Same goes with the programming. There could be multiple files. A big game, for example, you can think of a game, and there is always there is a file on your desktop called a shortcut. Do you know that? There is a an icon is being made with an arrow, so there is a shortcut. For example, this, okay, right? Could be Apex. I love Apex. I play Apex. Meanwhile, I haven't played, but there's this file is there. It's a shortcut. So this is the your main file, the entrance point for a program, and there could be bunch of files there. So this you know shortcut is pointing to the main file over there into somewhere into the directory is same. The repo which I told you about Replit is the same thing. So directory is the top down approach of a folder structure. I have explained this folder thing in my Linux part. So if you want to learn that how these things work, why this file structure is, and from where it came from, how it is optimizing thing, so you can go and check out over there, because that's the only place you can have access. So we'll move quickly. So now here this thing is called a pointer, and this is a very important concept again in programming. Not just pointer, it's also called as reference. So here is a reference, and here is a also called a pointer, which points to a place where there's a file, where there's a main file or the memory or anything, any sort of thing in computer. So this is a main game file, and this file then points to a multiple file. Okay, so that's how there's this renderer, there is map, then there could be a player, there could be another player profile, the customize, multiple players are there, or maybe called legends. So they like in GTA there is just one player you play, but like there are other characters also. This file is also being fetched. So okay, so this is what Python does. This is what mean the entrance point, like how the system knows a way to enter. Now same thing goes here. Right? Okay. Now same thing goes here. This entire place right now in Python. That's why I encourage you to go with some C++ plus plus when I explain that language. You could better understand that over there. But here the Python here is the main file, as you can see the name. So the compiler in this case is gonna be interpreter, but Python also uses compiler to a certain. I'll explain what. Okay, so I haven't typed anything, and this is a place, and as you can see there is no such, and the very first function that we're gonna write is a print. Okay, I don't know what's wrong. So just print and parentheses. Okay, so this is what our function is. Let me just a little bit zoom into it so you can see it better. So there is this print, okay, and then there is this thing. You can think of this in this way that it is kind of here it is. Okay, so it's the entry point you can think, and that's an output. So what does this thing output? Could be a really good question. Remember, we are still at the example of what in our school, mentioning so that you won't forget. We got multiple slips, the names, and then what we did, we just wrote them down on a paper. So we're gonna see that what these are. Okay, all right. Gonna build your intuition around like to approach a problem, that how these veteran programmers have approached to a problem. Okay, so here as you can see right now here. So now let's try to bring you a another example to explain you to what function is. Okay, and for that, so imagine your friend has organized a party. It could be a birthday party, it could be just a random party, and over there you just went and your friend, oh, hey, hi, and so happy and glad, and now your friend knows that you are here, so you can go and things do. So you can now think of your friend's house or your friend's place as your operating system. Okay, operating system is nothing but the program which runs on your machine, which is your Windows, Linux. Got it? So your friend house or the place is like an operating system, and you being like a program or a function. Okay, which kind of lags. And I have like an old machine, so just sorry about it. As soon as get back my machine, like I'll figure it out. So you went over with your friend's house. You have been certain sort of programs within yourself that could be dancing. maybe not dancing, don't dance, but you want to talk to, other friends. Maybe you don't want to talk to other friends because you're like quite introvert. So you just go and grab some, bunch of food over there, maybe some cold drinks, soft drinks are there, enjoying. And then meanwhile, you receive an emergency call. So that emergency call could be from your home, maybe some other friend might be in trouble. And in that hodgepodge, what happened is that you just went away. And then after a while, your friend started searching that week. And after searching his or her, being like really careful with this, so his or her house, your friend come to a conclusion that you just went away. And oh, why you away? The other possibility is that you just ended up stayed there at the till night and said, hey, I'm going now, it's quite late, so I have to go to back to the house. The mom is calling, told friend. See, so there are two things here. One is that you haven't told your friend and you just went away. The second thing is that you told your friend, you explained that I'm leaving, what could be the reason. Your friend be like, yeah, okay, fine. So the intuition, let's see what that is. We bring when go. Okay, so this function right here, I'm not talking about main right. Just focus on this. So this function, print, started, executing into the operating system. It asks some resources, and what that resource is, because it's gonna print on the console. What console? This is the console right now, right in this, front of. That's the console where it prints. So it's a Python console, right? And what is gonna ask some permission to the console and to the display, because you're gonna see it on the monitor. So the permission that is going to ask and the place the way it is gonna print is the display of the display. So it's gonna print on, got it. But once it is ending itself, when it is done printing or showing you on the display, what it is going to return to the OS, this is you. What are you gonna tell your friend, like, hey, I'm leaving? Okay, so your friend OS, okay, and this print function is gonna tell something. What? I'm leaving. Why are you leaving? Because I've done my printing. That's the part. That's the display. I've displayed the user whatever the user wanted. Now I'm leaving. I'm done with my work. So what are you gonna, other than that? In operating system with functions, there is something called return, and every functions returns something. Okay. So every function, whichever start with this parenthesis, returns something to the OS. It tells, hey, what exactly happened? Now, how do you think about this? Where is the real world example for that? You have seen those, you know, trains, the freight one, which the trains which load with your goods and stuff. So those trains start with an engine, and then they have their bogies attached to themselves. And now these bogies always end with one spare bogie, where there is usually a person is there sitting with flags and all these things, which tells that this is the end, this is the very end. It's like a return. So whenever it passes through any station, the station master or the people who are monitoring the entire train, that whether the trains going through their area are fine or not. Okay, so they, whenever they see this last bogie and they saw this person over there, they were like, okay, everything is fine, this train is good to go. We don't have to do alert another station or any other person, that okay. So they don't generate any sort of alert. That means everything is fine. So this is like a written thing. This entire function, the train. You can even see with passenger trains where it pulls passengers. So there is always a cross at behind. The light is blinking. It tells that this is the last bogie and it is getting completed and ending. It's going completely. There is nothing is been broken in between that, and it worked entirely. So your operating system also needs to know that where in the place that code has been executed or not. So for example, this is your function, this is a block, and now everything is being written down till here because there could be possibility that hey, I want to access display right now right here. So it just went jump to a display function, okay, and everything just stopped. But if anything just goes wrong and it just didn't return here, so the return is not gonna seen by the the operating system or the program which is which environment it is running. So the return part is really important. Usually it returns 0 or 1, or they are like, and multiple flags are there which are have very specific value mapped to the operating system, which tells like what's wrong if something went wrong. For example, on web you used to receive 404 error, 535, or any sort of thing. 404 means like not found. It's a very common error, not found. This is exactly what it is. So you request, that's a function. Your browser is a function. It requests and it went to a server, and the server returns the same thing. It's a function. Server is a function. It returns something, getting some input from you, and based on that return, if it didn't find anything, it's gonna return a flag. For hey, I haven't find this thing, whatever you have requested, it's just not there. Okay, so this is what entire return thing is. This is what a function is. This is what this. Now what this print is returning, this is returning that how many characters or the thing that it has printed on the display, the number of count of it. Okay, so for example, if I ask it to print, for example, what is going to return to the operating system is 3. So OS matches with the console over there, like are the things are being printed and the print fine, and it can go. So it can eliminate space. Now this thing acquires a space in stack. And now please don't ask me what stack is. I already have explained what memory is in my video. Okay, there is a two type of memory, heap and that, and I have used the best analogy, the real world example, so that you could understand it much better. You don't have to think about like what is going on. Everything is being explained already, and this is the story of this first thing, function. But the very first function which usually programs execute is a main. Okay, this is a function main. This is a file. This is a file .py. Now Python also does one thing. Let me just clear this out. Maybe no, we're gonna in this. So we're gonna learn, and why not? Hey, no, wait. Let's just try to print. Like let me. So you can print here now. What this thing is, I'll explain. So for example, YouTube, and let's try to press run. And now after running, I'm gonna show you console here out YouTube. So what this thing is, why I write this, I wrote. So let me explain this to you again. There are and it just so well. So here, this thing, Python has a one thing. So Python is actually based on interpreter. Interpreter. Now, how do you think what interpreter is? There is always two world leaders meet with each other. You know that you've seen, like for example, there is this Modi and Macron, the French president. I hope they are like, so Modi and Macron meet, and Modi usually speaks Hindi his visit, and Macron speaks French. Okay? And now the two languages are different. So what you need in between both of these is a person, another third person, which is an interpreter. IN or PRE. Oh, just got it. Okay. So there is an interpreter in between both of them, which explains what is going on. So here Python is a language which is kind of readable by humans. It's not pure English, as you can see with the syntax. See, I've written down what print. You could understand it's gonna printing something. What? YouTube. There is this thing printing. There is this parenthesis. You can also understand. Okay, so this is the function. So it's somewhere like a pseudo human readable text, or maybe a human readable text. Human can read this code. Now this Python is being interpreted. This your computer couldn't understand this language. So what we do is we use the interpreter in between this and the machine. Okay, so that the machine could understand this command. Okay, so like a little like so here is a machine it could understand, and in what language it's being interpreted? There is called an assembly language. How does it look? So how does it look? I don't know what's wrong. So this is somewhat assembly language looks like. It is quite readable, but it is still not the exact language what computer is somewhere in between that again. So there is also one more level of interpretation, or a level of language translation happens. So this is a language, as you can see, quite a lot of thing you couldn't understand, but there is a thing, loading a register. Register is the memory where everything is being stored. There are locations of the memory, 0, 1, 0. It's in hexadecimal, 16 base. What hexadecimal is, I'll tell you, but like so, it's getting this, it's coding the memory. A, yes, I forgot. Now there is jump. It jumps to a place to another memory. It out cache somewhere. So it is echoing out. I think printing something. So this is what this assembly language. Okay, and this is what Python. Look how much of a difference is there. Now then there is this one third thing which like happened at the very last stage. It's the machine language. And let's try to see that what how it looks like. So your machine code, where is I already have opened one. Purple. Okay, so our as you can see, wait. So these are basically the architecture types. If you're interested in learning, something, you're gonna learn in a subject called computer organization. This, but usually this machine language kind of looks very very from what we saw. That is a little bit quite a little bit stable, but like if you sit and started writing program, it's gonna be a big pain. And this is somewhere this machine language is, but it's still not the fully language. So let me show you again. So it's basically the one zero. Basically it's gonna be look like this. This is what somewhere the machine code is, okay, and it just converts that. Why 1 and 0? Because see, I already have also explained this concept, but what happened in machine is that it only understand high current and low current, high voltage, low voltage. That's a 1 0. So this entire thing whatever you wrote, it's being then converted to this those sequence, and these sequences are then stored in memory. So and then a header just them one what is written. See, the architecture is still same. I told you, the punch cards in old machines that they are programs written, and they read in a they worked in a linear fashion, like they are still working in a linear, as you can see. So linear thing is going still here, so it's this, and then in the end the computer understood it. The CPU just process this with logic unit and everything, and then after understanding it completely fully, it Then again went, changing it to somewhere, where the console could understand, and then the console just shows you whatever is being, written. It's being, this binary is again being translated. So you're gonna, this is what, entire process just went. This is what an interpreter is. But there is something also called a compiler. What is the difference? The interpreter works by reading one line at a time. Okay, just like how an interpreter work in, on language translation in between two world regions. Okay, so interpreter, just interprets one line at a time. So if Modi said something, it is gonna be a short line, and then interpreter interprets, convert that into French, and then the French president, say something a little, a short line, and then both of can understand each other. So our interpreter works like this. So what is a compiler? A compiler is nothing but it reads in just one go, everything quickly, and it produces, whatever. If something is wrong, it tells, hey, there is something wrong at this line. You said something wrong, or maybe you typed something, grammatical mistakes, and then interpreter, tells you line by line, hey, here is a grammatical mistake you made. Same thing, grammar in English. So your machine is also works on a something called a grammar. So here it checks that, for example, print. So the interpreter interprets P, then R, I, then E, then N. So it understood, hey, there is print. Okay. It went back, checks the grammar that whether print is listed in its library or not. So it found like, hey, it's here, but print is supposed to having something called this in order to work fully. But you type this. As soon as the interpreter came to this point, it finds out like, hey, something is wrong. I know. So it went back, checks the library, and it found out that this is the thing which it needs to be placed after print, and it's there. Like error, it won't let you execute until and unless you resolve the problem. But with compiler, it just went through like, hey, just read, read, and in the end it tells like there is an error here at this thing after print. It's even, gonna tell the line number maybe 11, but in our case it's just one. Okay, so this is the entire process which, went your what with functions. And that's a like really in-depth explanation which I have given. Like like nobody gives these sort of things, man. Like I never been able to find by any. So this is what a function is, this is what it is, and this is what actually mean is there, which is the entry point. Right now we are having file, okay, and we're able to, print our first YouTube. And what this thing is, interpreter, I told you interpreter. So let me get this. So I told you what interpreter is, and here with interpreter. So for example, this thing. So for example, here, let's go print. Interpreter came here, print. It's red. It's like okay, fine. Then it found this, like yeah, everything is going fine, yay. Then it went here. It found a double quote here. So it's be like, hey, now a string is starting. What is a string? String is where you can, write your natural language quite, you know without even affecting or creating any sort of a problem. So you could, even type a dollar sign here and could write it work fine, perfectly fine. It's a string. It doesn't care like what's in between, but it, knows how interpreter knows, how the machine knows, how the Python knows. Like, hey, there is a double quote here, there is a double quote here. So the string is somewhat ending here, but it is not sure. So I told you an example of the train. You remember the example? And then there is this, a last bogey tells across. Same way, string is being, stored in this fashion, memory. So for example, this is YOUTUBE. For example, just remember, forget the, and in the end, it adds something called this. This is a, a forward slash as. So it tells the, when memory is being read by, the machine, it tells like, hey, we reached the point, like this is the point. which is its need to be ended. Because like, see, your interpreter has interpreted this, it has converted everything over there, and it also adds this flag. So just make sure that your entire train, your entire flight, train is ended or not. It just tells that. So there is this thing also with string. Okay, I think you got the idea. Like, why it's like, you can think of this as the train. This is being just added by the interpreter at the very last. It won't be shown, but it's there in the memory. So whenever you're working with trying to accessing particular character, what character is, character is just a single quote thing. So what a character is. But in Python, I think you can also do this, or maybe it just got converted to string. I don't remember exactly, but like, this is a single quote, and this is a double quote. What string is. This is what we're doing here. Okay, now we understood what function is. We understood what our something called main is, how it enters string, everything. Now, so if you remember the first, did I think I did. Oh god. Oh, I also stopped that. So first thing was that we were bunking in our school. Okay, where doing a bunk, and our sports teacher just caught us and he wants some name. So you brought some name, so separate list. Forget, please, sorry with my spell. And now after these separate lists, what you did is wrote, being able to wrote these names on paper. Okay? Now let's try to go with the very first. Try to that house. Hmm. So the first name which you might get is, for example, Shubham. It's quite terrible, not terrible, no, but it's a quite a common name. So you got Shubham again. Then there is Rahul. Then there is Rohan, my friend. I'm gonna like list my friends. So Saurav, there is Pushkal. Oh, okay. Okay. So I wrote some. Okay, so learn what this is. I should be like, should have like explained this thing at the first, but okay, fine, got it. So what this thing is, you guys gonna be like, oh man, this guy is. So what this thing is, as you can see, like, this color is entirely different beige, but you could be might be a green color. Okay, so this thing is like a comment. So it's just there for the readability of us, for programmers, for who is writing, not for the interpreter. Interpreter even care, it doesn't even take care. Just generally just bypass this, and it's just only for here for the purpose of telling other programmers, because there are a lot of programmers who work on the, they have to explain same code. So in order to explain the word of particular function logic, you just comment. Didn't know. I don't know. That was a quite a good rhyme. Okay, so Saurav is here, and one more name. Let's see, Gull. Push. Okay, so now we got our names in different clips. Is it gonna show there in Python? Like, no. So Python, has assigned them memory. This entire thing right now is placed in somewhere in memory. But how would you access it? Like, how would you tell Python is the this thing? Like, how would you, the problem which also arose with this list is that there were two or three names which were same. Like, how would you know which Shivam needs to be called, or who's that Shivam? Maybe the class has three Shivams, but there are written two Shivam. Now, which two of which two Shivam are the one out of these three? It's gonna be a big problem. So how would you, refer? Remember, I also told you something called reference pointers in memory, which, go and access it. How would you access this thing? So there is something called in Python or in every other language, or that reference is being by a variable. So for example, you can have a or how to type it. So this equals this, right? As you can see that it is showing, unexpected indent error. Fine. There is D, E, F. Let's try to do it like quickly. Yeah. Like, so fine. So now what is going to happen? You can think of this as roll numbers or as unique identifiers, which being able to, tell you what it is and which fetch. See, in memory, in Python, particular Python, this thing, right, doesn't consist this. This is not something like in, programming languages. There's a concept of called, bucket. So a is the name of this bucket, it's holding from, like, no. In Python it's not. Maybe in C++, yes. Here, no, big no. So what is happening is that Shubham is being stored. Shubham is being stored in a memory, and this memory locations, all of these cells have, an address hx1, yeah, it's one. Got it. Point. So you can think of this as a, a bare land, a plot where a house hasn't been built, but now right now there is a house called S, and that plot number is here. So this is the plot number, this is fine, and then there is this house. Okay, this S HM same with X 203. It could be, contiguous, or it could be, very different. 15. So for example, in my colony the houses are, here and there. For example, there is a house number 50 here, and every other house has an entirely different name numbering, and then 51 and 52 is on the, entirely on the other side of the plot. I don't know why it is there, but so memory is also kind of like this. So these things are being stored here, and what this A is doing is kind of just creating a reference to the, very first plot, so that you can, the interpreter could read it further again and again. So that's how you can access it. So as soon as you call A, it's gonna call Shubham. A is not storing anything, it's just referring, it's just a reference right here. Okay, let me pause this a while. I don't know what's going on outside. It was basically an election rally, and then my dinner I have to. So I'm gonna wrap this up quite quickly. So I think you got an idea that what is going on here. So it is kind of referring. So it's a reference. Okay? And let's try to, print this. Let's try to make a print here. So you will. So let's try to print A. So see that whether Shubham is going to run. And here we got the Shubham. Can we do multiple prints also? Yeah, we can. Since a function could get multiple inputs, but it has to produce a single output. So in this case, it is producing a single output on the console. Single output it is getting on the display. Okay, so it's just one point. So many to one kind of relationship. Okay, so what if you just write here, Shivam again? What am I gonna do? What might gonna happen with this? So the Shivam is gonna be printed. Okay, so now here is the thing, like whether this Shubham is going to be this Shubham or whether it's going to be this. Now to check whether it is same or not, whether it is accessing the same memory location or not, since it is same, as you can see, Shubham and Shubham, as you can see that they're same, but whether is it like in the programming, like whether are these stored at the same memory location or not, or what's going on. So for that we have something called what, an operator called is. It is nothing but, like, I'm gonna explain it. Operating is Operator is like the same thing, like you have, in mathematics, like plus, then you have your minus, division, modulo, everything. Modulo is just for, getting the remainder, not the division. So that. So now here, friend, let's try to check whether A is B. What is it gonna do? Like, I'm gonna explain. I think math is- So it's true. Right now, the memory is going to be the same. Okay. And the thing is, with Python, there is something called, like, what happens usually is once you store something like, um, here, Python is kind of, do some certain type of optimizations. Okay. And with that, what I mean is that sometimes it's going to refer to the same method, A and B. And sometimes it is not. Sometimes it might think that, hey, the possibility of that Shivam could be is that it particular operation, so it could change. So now, as soon as we make any change to this, we can change, okay? We can make changes. And instead of Shivam, we started, having me, I at the, so it's gonna, be like now it's an entirely different object, it's a new object. How Python changes in string is that if you have Shivam and if you want to, add a particular character at the end, maybe in between, for example, here between B and H. So what, the Python does is take this, it adds this, and then create it. It's an entirely different space. It's just not that it's just inserting in between it. It has, divided this first part, then second part, and then this part. That's how like Python does work. Now at the back, there is something called, like, as we can see that there is a references going on. So we haven't talked about, emptying the memory. Since if you're acquiring any resources or any resource, any place you have left, for example, you left your college, you just cannot continue over there to occupy the seat. It needs to be filled with, some new other student, one, the juniors might come and, sit on the bench. So you have to, clean out this. So anyway, like, Python has something called inbuilt called a garbage collector. Garbage collector. Why garbage? Since if a particular value, for example, Rohan is here, okay, and there is this, trailing one also, just for the interpreter to that. And now if Rohan has been used, and for example, if J was there and it has been used, gone, the reference is gone. Once the reference is gone, the garbage collector comes and it started to read. And the deletion doesn't mean that the memory is gone. The place is now being filled with something else, or maybe it just remain like this. It just removed the, the pointers, like what is practice going now. Wow. So what it does is, instead of, deleting this, it's like, the place is now being vacant and a new tenant could live here, or could be a new house could be built. For example, HOUSE, house. Yeah. So that's how it works. But with, what the thing is with garbage collector, just like as we saw that whether it's gonna, refer the same memory location or not, with garbage collector also sometimes it just doesn't delete certain values. For example, if there is, a string, and it might find out, like, it might have a possibility of getting used again into, some future program. So what the garbage collector does is just kind of just leave and just only delete the reference, and just let the memory space being vacant, instead of vacant, just being occupied by this. Okay, for example, if there is this tree, it just could into the memory space again. So for example, if tree could be used for, sort of again addition also, so it just fetches that tree and just, out. So this is what this entire, zeros and all this does. And what this is doing here, there are two sort of operators. Don't worry. So there are two operators here, is and what does this, and there was this since we used it to take Shivam. So what is this is kind of assigned. So for example, take 5, it is not storing, but it's kind of creating a reference to this 5. And here, as you can see with this double equals to, what it does is it's kind of check the value. So for example, if you check Shubham, it's gonna say true. Okay, and is what is doing is, for example, since we have our two reference A and okay, and what is doing is kind of it checks these reference, not the value, but the reference. Like, are they referring to the memory location or not? If it is not, it's gonna pop out the false out. Okay, and let's try to do, yeah, okay, fine. Okay, so as you can see that if we B, and what if I in A B, it's also going out of true. Okay, true. But if I as soon as N doesn't even. So like for example, let's see what happens with N. So let's try to build in like I'm gonna wrap this quick, man. I'm starving. So it's gonna say error, and it's not defined because it doesn't even able to find where this thing is referring or what this thing is. Just it just doesn't know. Python will be like, hey, what are you doing, man? It's just not there. So as you can see that it's like an interpreter. So it interpreted this, and then as soon as it hit this, it just popped an error. It's like, hey, wait, something is wrong, man. Like, do some correctness, and then I'll like run further. Just gonna stop. Like if we like try to do it with like, why it is not typing something? No, try to see. Gonna what's saying? Gonna false. Why? Why? Because it's an object. And this thing is also an object. It's a reference. Remember, it's a reference. It's not something which is there. So it's a reference and it's an object. So does, what it is doing here is instead of this A, it's gonna call whatever this is Shubham. So it's gonna bring Shubham right here. Okay, and then it compares 3. Now, for example, if you do, for example, if we have G equals to 3, okay, and if I instead of having A here, if I do this G, say what in front of you? True, true. Okay, so this is what a print function is. This is what a function is. We're gonna see a little bit more about function in the next video. No, don't worry about it. I'm currently starving, man. Okay, and this is what print is. This is how it is. I think the part which we are even currently missing is like this. So we are not even like achieved to this second point. Gonna see that. So the second point and the third point like could be a better this starting problem where you having this on one list but not unable to write the roll calls and further the details. Okay, so we're gonna see that too in the next video. It's gonna be a little bit longer, but hopefully I think you got a really good taste about Python. This okay, so I think you got a really good idea about. So yeah, I put the head back. So you got a really good idea about Python, how it is working, some of the behind scenes. But the part which is remaining is a little bit of compilation, and which I'm gonna tell right now, which is just because I just remember it. Okay, so what it Python does was that. Okay, so what Python does is just not only interpreting, it also kind of creates also a file called .pyc, the same folder structure. For example, this is a folder structure and you are having a file called main.py. So as soon as interpreted and everything is gone and there is no changes being made into the file, what Python does is it's simple, a hidden file kind of thing, and it's going to dot p. So whenever a change is not being made and you said, hey, console, just that's how you actually run in in terminal. So Python main.py, as soon as you hit enter, The enter symbol is also like that, uh, kind of like that. So as soon as you enter, what it does, Python is like a little bit of cleverness. Like, hey, I think I already have interpreted it and it hasn't made any changes. So instead of this, why not pick this and just show it to the user quickly instead of going through line by line again and again. Let's just do a quick compilation. Just show it to the user. So interpreter is already been done. Interpretation is already done. Since it's like the translation is done already done between the leaders. So between Modi and Macron, the translations has already been done, so it is now be compiled in a one file. And now whenever a newsreader is gonna read or maybe on YouTube video, this transcript file is being just uploaded, and now you can see the transcript quickly. Okay, so this is what somewhat like sort of a compilation and like easiness of the thing Python does quickly for just to get a bit more efficient. And this is what an early an intro to Python, and we're gonna see more about into the data structures part. And I think hopefully it's not the same that how you usually find videos on all over the internet and even in books. This is actually my approach. That's how actually I learned, and I want to remind you again that please try to make some notes on your own. Maybe a little bit. I'm not having enough time so that I will be able to provide in the book format, but I will encourage you to write your own and then try it by yourself into the terminal in Replit. It's quite good. I have it's not being promoted. I'm using it because it's quite efficient, effective. You don't have to install anything on your machine. Just go over there. It's free. It's quick. Some easy, and that's how we're gonna learn like language and programming skills and logic building things. Like it's free. Like literally, like we don't have to pay anything. So bye for this video. You